I feel like it's 2022 and we shouldn't have to keep talking about the subject. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about another issue that has to do with Black people, except this time it's specifically Black women and the masculinization of them, or us should I say. So obviously I am a Black woman and I kind of touch on the subject in my video about whitewashing in the fashion industry, I believe it was. As a lot of you know, Black women are often not seen as women and are often seen as men for some absurd reason. And a lot of that just has to deal with society as a whole, mostly Western society, but it happens in other cultures as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is how if a Black woman speaks up, they will often be called aggressive or passive aggressive or angry, which doesn't make sense because humans are allowed to have whatever feelings they want. But it just seems like when it comes to Black women in particular, people always generalize them into being angry. So basically, like, the whole basis of why I wanted to make this video is because I've just been thinking about all the times where I've been called passive aggressive and I've been told off for speaking out on things that I should have spoken about earlier. And a lot of that had me thinking that if I was white, or if I was lighter skinned, that I wouldn't have been called such things. So that's basically the first point I want to touch on. I could just be having a regular healthy argument with you, and this is how I speak in my arguments, depending on if it's like in real life or over text. I'm not gonna start cursing at you. I'm not gonna call you out your name on things that have nothing to do with the situation. But it always seems like whenever I do that, I have to kind of escalate to swearing or other things because obviously my point isn't getting through. And the second that that happens is when I start being called aggressive, passive aggressive, mean, rude, judgmental, etc, etc. Say I'm having an argument with a white person and they're coming at me way more aggressively than I'm coming at them. Like, they could be swearing, being very passive aggressive, and nobody is gonna call them passive aggressive, nobody's gonna call them aggressive or anything like that. But once I do it, it's suddenly a problem. Even if the argument isn't like related to race, in my head, because as a Black person, you're always gonna have some sort of feelings about race in the back of your head in the argument or whatever is happening at the moment. And then when you actually sit down and think about it, it's like everything actually has something to do with race, because I can bet you an insane amount of dollars that that wouldn't have happened if I was white. And it's unfair that I have to learn how to level with other people that aren't Black when they are allowed to raise their voice, yell at me, call me out my name, and have no repercussions. I have had to learn that I can't be too aggressive in my words. Whether I'm angry or not, I'm basically not allowed to be angry, because if I'm angry, then it's gonna be at a level where you're being aggressive, you're putting too much force, it's not that deep, blah, 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 blah. And kind of like building on that, I feel like it's only aggressive when Black women do it. To elaborate, every race or every group of people has their own stereotypes, but specifically what I've seen is that when Black women do it, and when Black women are speaking out for themselves or being angry rightfully and just having normal human emotion, they're called aggressive, they're called rude, they're called ghetto. Now let's take Latinas for example. I know that there is a spicy Latina stereotype, which also does not reflect all Latinas, but I'm just using like the two stereotypes together. Like in the case of Latinas, they're hypersexualized in the spicy Latina trope. If you take example like Gloria from Modern Family, she spoke out a lot, she voiced her opinions a lot, and she was over-sexualized for that. But then if you take another character like, for say, Maya in the TV show Girlfriends, she was seen as ghetto for being loud and angry or overly opinionated, blah, blah, blah. The words that are used to describe Black women and these stereotypes are very often associated with men rather than women. Like, you usually, when you call someone spicy, 8 times out of 10 it's gonna be a woman. But if you're calling someone strong or aggressive, which I don't know, that's just another video about gender stereotypes. It usually has to do with a man. So we can see that like this has been a thing. Like it's not just something new with social media. Like this has been going on for a while. And then it's another thing that because they're aggressive or loud, Black women are seen as strong, which people take in the literal sense, like in healthcare, for example. As we know, Black women are severely mistreated in healthcare, and they are often denied the proper care that a healthcare professional should be giving them because they're like, no, you're strong, you can handle this pain or whatever you're feeling. For example, when my mom was giving birth to me, she was in the hospital because I was a C-section baby, and she was asking them to give her meds because obviously she was in pain, she was in labor, and they just weren't giving her the meds. She had to scream, 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 and then finally there was a Black nurse that was there, thankfully, that gave her the meds. And it's just like, so if she hadn't been yelling that whole time in pain, in labor, and if there wasn't another Black woman there, then we don't know what would have happened. I just feel like it's unfair for other women to be treated as fragile and like delicate and everything. But when it comes to Black women, they have to weather the storm, basically. And then I feel like because of the whole stereotype of Black women being like aggressive and loud and strong and whatnot, I feel like then we're not allowed to participate in like girlier trends. Like in my video about whitewashing in the fashion industry, I talked about how you don't really see a lot of Black people in like the clean girl aesthetic or the cottagecore aesthetic because we are seen as having to be strong. Like our fashion sense has to represent that strongness or that like loudness. You're just not allowed to be overly feminine. Things that people usually associate with being hyper feminine is like having your hair done, having your nails done, having your makeup done, wearing dresses. Even if a Black woman does all those things, now all of a sudden, maybe they're not going to be seen as masculine, but now they're going to be seen as ghetto. Like you can do all the things that society wants you to do, and the stereotype will still remain or become even worse. Because then you've moved into a whole nother thing about being ghetto and having too long of nails and your hair being too long and your dress being too short. And it just irritates me sometimes because it's just like whatever you do, it can never be enough, and we're always just going to be seen this way. Like even for me personally, it kind of messes with your own self-esteem, because if it's on a regular day, I don't feel as pretty as I do with, I don't know, long braids, or if I have like hair extensions in, or if I have my nails done. I feel prettier than when I have my natural hair out, or when my nails are not done, or if I'm literally just wearing sweats and a t-shirt. Other non-Black women are allowed to rock up in sweatpants, hair undone, nails undone, and most of the time they will still be seen as feminine. But if I do, I just feel like I'm not as feminine as I could be, as I should be. And honestly, all of the things about having long nails, having long hair, wearing dresses, and that being associated with being feminine, that's another stereotype in itself. But just for the purpose of this video, we're gonna kind of play into that stereotype. Like a lot of Black women in pop culture are always subjected to this. Mostly dark-skinned women, but it can also be like just Black women in general. Like you can see like Michelle Obama, Serena Williams, Megan Thee Stallion. What do they all have in common? They've all been told that they are actually men when they are in fact women. And then Megan Thee Stallion, which again I talked about in one of my other videos, she to me is like the epitome of femininity. She has long nails, her makeup's always done, she's always wearing dresses, skirts, blah blah blah. Yet everyone calls her Marcus and says that because she's tall and because she has curves, because she's muscular, that she's a man, which does not make any sense, because she literally does everything a hyper feminine person would do, yet she's still seen as a man because she's Black. If you take, for example, Taylor Swift, who's the same height as her, Taylor Swift is seen as a woman. If you take, for example, Zendaya, who's light skinned and is the same height as both of them, she is also seen as feminine. Even when Zendaya like famously wears androgynous things sometimes, she is still seen as a woman, whereas Megan Thee Stallion, who wears feminine things all the time, is always seen as a man. And then touching more on Megan Thee Stallion, like, you know how there's that whole thing on social media, it's like girls support girls and always believe the victim first in like cases of like harassment or assault or etc, etc. And I can see why you would say that, but then why say it and then when it comes to a black woman go back on your word? Because we all know that Megan Thee Stallion got shot by Tory Lanez, and there was literally video evidence of her foot being shot and her coming out and saying, I've been shot, and yet everyone was so quick to ask for the facts, pretend like it didn't happen when the proof was there. And I think personally that it was because she's a black woman, because she's 5'10" and because she's more muscular than other women. That is why. Because if it was a white woman of her same stature, everyone would have believed her straight away. So anyways, that was all I had to say on this issue for right now. If you like this video, like it. If you have any comments, questions, queries, anything, comment down below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this in the future, or just different types of videos that I do, because I also do vlogs and other things. And if you want to keep up with me outside of YouTube, because I post less frequently on here, you can also follow my socials, which will be here and in the description below. So bye guys.